Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Aero League Racing Tier 2. My name is Aman, and you all join me today for the Brazilian Grand Prix. An exciting race in store for us all today. Not much longer now until we get the session underway as well. So be sure to get comfortable, grab something to eat, maybe something to drink, maybe a loved one. And yeah, we should be getting started very, very soon. Right. Well, we have a bit of time before the session gets underway. Why not take a look at the standings? So, at the current moment, of course, your driver's standings in your driver's standings, Bambino had secured the championship 2 races ago. He currently leads the grid with 203 points. We have Jaguar in P2 with 95 points, a massive gap separating P1 and P2. P3 sitting with Trems, who has 92 points. In P4 we have DDK, who has in P4 we have DDK, who has 91 points, and in P5 we have Jim, who has 72. Saeed, Nikadza, Jack, Alu, and Jack Kings will round off the rest of your top 10. Looking at the constructor standings, on the other hand, Mercedes currently lead the championship with 213 points, but not too far behind is Red Bull, currently in P2 with 187 points, have a 26-point deficit to the leaders, so a lot more can be in store between these two teams for the championship. In P3 we have Alpine with 97 points. In P4 we have Williams. In P5 we have AlphaTauri, and then we have McLaren, Ferrari, Haas, Alfa Romeo, and Aston Martin in that order. So, well, unfortunately oh, you're right. Oops, I forgot to press spectator. Um, so even though the driver standings has been decided, still a lot to look forward to in terms of the constructors. And let's talk about a little bit about this track. So Brazil, a very, very, very renowned circuit amongst F1 fans, as always having a fantastic race here. It's always great to see what sort of wheel-to-wheel racing we can get at a track like this. It's important to have a good balanced setup as well. As I'm just gonna quickly make sure I haven't missed anything. No, it does not seem I have. So, just a little bit longer now until we get the session underway. So, yeah, we should be getting started very, very soon. All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay we had there, but we're finally getting the Brazilian Grand Prix underway. AC that's given us the go-ahead to finally ready up and get this session started. It looks like we have 13 drivers, I believe, starting this race, so should be a decent field, and of course a very competitive one as well. Bambino looking to extend his championship advantage, so quite a lot to in a sense, look forward to in this race. And of course, a track like Brazil, renowned for its unpredictable weather, it's so easy to get caught up with dry setups and stuff, but you really have to be prepared for both ends of the spectrum at a track like this. Unexpected weather conditions, you never know if qualifying is going to be wet or if the main race is going to be wet, or if there's going to be dramatic changes with the weather as time progresses. But I'm sure we're about to find out as the session's about to get underway in, well, I guess 30 more seconds. So, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are all set to get the Brazilian Grand Prix underway as I quickly take out all the details accordingly. This is, I think, the first time I've done it without accidentally enabling the telemetry, but regardless, there does seem to be a bit of an overcast weather above us, so not too sure how this will progress as the qualifying continues. There may be some rain expected later on in the session, so drivers should be rather quick to get out and set their lap times relatively quickly before the track gets too wet. And we already have some activity at the McLaren garage, and it seems to be, I believe that is Prezemu, who is coming out and will most likely be the first car out on track to set a competitive lap time. Granted, he is the only car out on track at the moment. So, ooh, and already getting extremely squirrely, and already on the exit of the pit, on the pit exit, he spins out and destroys his front wing. Not the start you would want for a session like this, but unfortunately for Prezemu, he's gonna have to most likely come in at the end of this lap to get his front wing changed. Most definitely not pleased with himself there. So I guess that focus shifts our attention onto the AlphaTauri driver that seems to be Igor at the moment, who is currently out on his out lap at the moment and seems to be leading the rest of the grid as he heads towards the start finish line. And while riding on board with him, we'll get an idea of this track as well. So Brazil, two DRS zones on a track like this. The first one being, of course, the pit straight, and the other one following, coming near the end of Sector 1. Both straights provide ample of overtaking opportunities, as to be honest with you, this entire track does very, very wide circuits, so a ton of room to really go for moves and dive bombs, as I'm sure we're going to be seeing a few as the session progresses. As you can see by looking around on the screen, I suppose, there is not many barriers close to the track, unless you're talking through certain sections like here through the pit straight. As you will see that the walls do seem to be closer to the track, but for the considerable portion of it, there's still a massive amount of open room that we have available. We're riding on board with Igor as he heads down towards turn 1. Very easy turn 1. Turn 2, a bit easy to lose the car out, especially if you're not careful, but he seems to have gotten his foot down very, very nicely, heading now towards this technical first DRS zone of his run. And coming through Sector 1 says a 17.2. And now this is a tight, twisty section of Brazil, but still, this is what's lovely about a track like this, as he's seems to be slowing down significantly. It looks like Igor is abandoning his lap by the looks of it, so I guess we'll shift our attention over to the Wicked Prophet. Unfortunately for Wicked, he had a bit of a moment through that corner there. It looked like he was going to collide right into the back of Igor, but thankfully he gets his car under control there. It seems like the Wicked Prophet's also just on a slow outlap at the moment. Just seems to be drivers are, at the moment, heating up their tires. It doesn't look like anyone's really pushing for a lap at the moment. Though on the other hand, Wicked Prophet does set a purple Sector 2. Either that or I'm probably having connectivity issues, so never mind. It seemed like the Wicked Prophet was absolutely sending it through those last few corners there. Heading now towards the start-finish line. DRS wide open, keeping it as left as possible. So that's a 110.2, so that will be the first benchmark lap by the looks of it for for the rest of the drivers, as now Igor comes across the line, sets a 118.1, nothing competitive from him at the moment, and Zab's now coming across the line and setting a 109.2, a fantastic lap time from him. JP, on the other hand, coming now through Sector 3 and approaching the start-finish line. He does have his teammate, who is currently in the pits by the looks of it. Now with DRS wide open, sticking it as left as possible, comes across the line, sets a 109.3 himself, sets a 109.3, only 800ths behind Zav at the moment. Barely missing out on provisional pole. Meanwhile, Nikudza now coming through the end of Sector 2. Has set a purple Sector 2, as a matter of fact. Has done a 51.7 so far in his run. And now Nikudza coming towards the line. DRS wide open. Activated rather late there on this occasion. Saeed actually managing to take provisional pole, but now Nikudza coming across the line, snatching provisional pole right out of Saeed's hands just as he got it. Sets a 108.6, 4/10 faster than Saeed Al-Fassi. Currently in P2 with a 109.0. A very respectable lap time from him. We saw Prezema, whose struggles obviously continued on his outlap. Looks to be on a run now. Jaguar, on the other hand, in the Red Bull, currently fighting for the Constructors' Championship. Now comes across the line. Will he be able to take provisional pole away? No, he will not. Manages to set a 108.7. That does land him in P2, though. We're riding on board with Prezemu. Obviously, after his first lap mishaps, he now seems to be on a roll and seems to have gotten going at this point. Matching those apexes very, very nicely. And now coming towards the end of Sector 2. Let's see what sort of times he's putting up. Sets a 52.8. Now the McLaren driver, DRS wide open, coming across the line. He manages to set for himself a 109.6, so that's just good enough to beat his teammate out. Places him in P6 at the moment. Looking at the Mercedes drivers, currently setting a 52.3 as his total lap time. Sets a purple Sector 2, however. Blurry now coming across the line. His teammate not too far behind him at the moment. Sets a 109.1, a respectable lap time to place him up into P4. And now Bambino, who has invalidated his run, will most likely be attempting to do a last to first run, as we've seen him do countless times. Meanwhile, Alu, on the other hand, also coming towards the end of his run, sets a 108.5, a fantastic lap there from Alu in the Alpine, as he manages to take provisional pole, just beating out Nikudza by almost a 10th. Nikudza obviously with a 108.6, just barely missing out on provisional pole. Rula seems to be on a run out himself. Unfortunately, has invalidated his lap time. And Bambino, of course, currently in his in-lap, most likely. As most of the drivers have now seemed to come back into their pits to refuel and change tires, they're now beginning for their second runs. There's only, of course, 11 minutes and 20 seconds left to go in the session, so tons of time right now. And where we were worried about rain with this overcast weather, it seems like the sun has actually begun to come out, so it doesn't look like any of the drivers are really going to be having to worry about any of the rainfall that was potentially going to land out on track. At the moment, it seems like Zab and Igor are out on their outlap. So we'll ride on board with Igor, who seems to be a bit ahead of Zab at the moment, giving room to the Alpine driver. Not too sure how necessary that was, but now riding on board with Igor as he begins his lap, currently in P10. Unfortunately, hasn't really set a competitive lap time, a 118.1 being his only recorded lap time at the moment. We obviously saw earlier on in his runs that he did slow down, so not too sure what was the reasoning behind that, but now we'll get to see what he really has to show us, coming now through the first DRS zone and at the end of Sector 1. Managing to set a 17.2, already 8 thousandths faster than he was last time, and this is part of the track where he did slow down. So of course he'll be making up a massive amount of time through this section. As a bunch of other drivers have now begun exiting out onto the track to begin their second runs. 10 minutes left to go in the session. And Igor doesn't seem to be wasting any time now, coming towards the end of Sector 2. He's managing to set a 52.3, 7.5 seconds faster than his previous lap time. And now darting his way towards the start-finish straight. Of course, now DRS wide open as soon as he possibly can. Keeps it as left as possible. Comes across the line. He didn't set a respectable lap time earlier. Now sets a 109.3. Does place him P9 at the moment, so of course he isn't dead last, luckily. Jaguar... no, not Jaguar. Rula actually setting a very nice lap time. A 109.0, just barely beating Saeed. Places himself in the top 5. Looks like Trems has just set a lap time himself as well. Nikudza also out on a run at the moment. Currently in P3 with a 108.6. Only missing out on provisional pole by almost a tenth and a half. He's going to be looking to regain that time through a few of these corners. Does have a Ferrari in front of him. Hopefully he doesn't... Ooh, as Nikudza seemed to be getting all squarely through the exit of that corner there. A snap of oversteer by the looks of it. And so we can just see, just as he comes through Sector 2, he's only up by 0.06 of a second. I'm not too sure he has the pace to maybe to get that extra bit of time through these last few corners. But now Nikudza coming across the line, sets a 108.6 flat. And that's unfortunately still not good enough to take provisional pole away. Meanwhile, Trems, on the other hand, on a very slow lap himself, will most likely be coming into at the end of this lap. Zab, on the other hand, about to end his run. See the red flashing light, and so Zab now going into the pits. Said, on the other hand, unfortunately invalidated his lap time. And JP9, who was a debutee in the last race, of course, unfortunately had an incredible pace during qualifying, but unfortunately the race didn't translate well for him. We'll see if he can change his luck around. He's currently in P9, while 109.3 on the board. And we see Alu currently out on an out lap as well. We'll go back to spectating him as soon as we finish up this lap with JP. So obviously a considerable gap to close to P1 at the moment. If he's going to be looking to regain as much time as he can, and that's all. It looks like he's extremely... Oh, no, never mind. So I thought he was out on a run of his own at the moment, but I guess not. It looks like he's now preparing himself to go out for a run, so I guess we'll right on board with Alu and see what sort of lap times he's putting up. So currently, your pole position sitter, already a 10th up on his lap time, has set a purple Sector 1. Alu on an absolute flyer at this moment. I love these close angle camera shots that we get at Brazil. A little less than 7 minutes left to go in this session, and as time is beginning to wind down, a lot of these drivers are currently still in the pits. Oh, and it looks like Alu's actually slowed down. It looks like he's yeah, it looks like Alu's just abandoned his lap, unfortunately. So I guess we'll bring our attention right back to JP, who is currently on a flyer, roughly 0.2 up on his current lap time. It wouldn't be good enough to put him in provisional pole, but it certainly would move him up a considerable amount of positions. And of course, with these last few corners left to go, JP now coming to the end of Sector 2, a 10.5 up on his time. Fortunately, it looks like he lost out a bit there through Sector 2. But now, coming across the line, he sets a 109.0, just barely missing out on beating his teammate at the moment, who is currently in P6. So JP, with a 109.03, places himself in P7. Ooh, a bit squarely on the entrance to that corner there. Looked like it was under braking, and luckily for us, Alu does not spin out. Keeps his car out on track. Coming through Sector 2 now. This should be the actual time lap that Alu wanted to set, and still it isn't. 0.6 down on his current lap time. He should be most likely coming in at the end of this lap then. Guess we can just call it his in lap. So we have a yellow flag in Sector 2, and it seems to be the Red Bull of Trems there, who's slowed down incredibly to let the Ferrari through, not realizing that, I believe that isn't Rala, no. Not realizing that the Ferrari isn't on a run of his own at the moment. But now, riding on board with Trems, who was on his out lap. DRS, of course, wide open, and now comes across the line and begins what should be one of his final few runs here. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the session, and heading down into turn 1, Trems is absolutely sending it. Currently in P3 with a 108.6, only needs a tenth and a half, and he's unfortunately invalidated his lap time. And now Trems is going to be, as he barely misses out on the McLaren there. A very close collision there between him and it seemed to be Przemu. Luckily, there was no incident involved in that situation, as there is a Mercedes out on track. It's Blurry Julio who's going to be coming in to quickly switch off of these tires and move on to a new set. Trems unfortunately invalidating his run. He's going to be taking it extremely easily through these last few corners. Granted, if this is his final set of tires, then he's going to want to save them as much as he possibly can. Obviously, invalidating a lap time. It's good though if he invalidated the lap time earlier in the lap. At least he gets to save him throughout the rest of them. There seems to be a Haas coming out on track, and that seems to be Nakudza, currently in P2. He's not too far behind provisional pole at the moment either. So we've seen, of course, Trems was saving his ERS throughout the entire lap. And now with 3 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, he's going to give this another go now. Coming across the start-finish line, he now begins, hopefully, a timed lap for himself, coming through turn 1. So you hear the aggressive downshifts of the Red Bull coming through that corner there. Now coming through the DRS zone and across sector 1. Let's see what sort of times he's doing. He's unfortunately down on his current lap time by almost half a tenth. Just gonna have to find the more pace throughout the rest of this lap. There's only a few more minutes left to go in the session. It won't be long now before a lot of these drivers start exiting the pits and start heading out onto the track. So might as well get your lap out of the way early. And now Trems coming towards the end of sector 2. Is almost a tenth up on his current lap time, so he does need a bit more pace if he's looking to fight for provisional pole. He has set a purple sector 2 at the moment. 2 minutes left to go in the session. Trems now sticking it as left to the track as he possibly can. DRS wide open, comes across the line, sets a 108.54 and just misses out on provisional pole by 6 thousandths of a second. Incredibly competitive lap times here from these drivers, as they're actually managing to set extremely close lap times to each other. Nakudza, on the other hand, who is currently on a timed run, unfortunately is going incredibly slowly at the moment. And now we can see the traffic following up behind, as most of these drivers trying to make it towards the line as soon as they possibly can. Even Alu, who is sitting on provisional pole, has now begun to head out, has a Red Bull in front of him. And this is what makes it interesting to see all drivers hurrying towards the line as fast as they possibly can. Alu not looking to stay behind this Red Bull for too long, or if he is, he's going to have to give him a ton of space, being mindful of the Mercedes that's behind him, of course. And I believe it will be Nakudza who will be beginning one of the first few timed runs in this session. Seems like Trems has pulled over to the side of the track, not looking to get in anybody's way. Nakudza now coming through the first few corners and now heading down the first DRS zone. Keeping a close eye on his times, as he's already a tenth and a bit up. Granted that he does finish this lap going at the pace that he is, he's definitely going to take pole position away from Alu. But of course he has to keep it calm, cool, and collected, as there is a Mercedes parked towards the outside of the track there. Yellow flags in sector 2 next to that Mercedes. Trems unfortunately coming back into the pits. That's going to be it from him. He's not going to be able to take pole position away from Trems. Away from Alu, and with 3 seconds left to go in the session, The time is up for most of these drivers now. It's either now or never. Looking at Nekadza, he was on pace to take provisional pole away from Alu, keeping it as left as possible. Comes across the line, sets a 108.4, and does manage to take provisional pole away from Alu. Unfortunately for Alu, he invalidates his run, and he will not be improving on this occasion. He's going to have to stay behind in P2. Zab, on the other hand, currently in P6 with a 108.8, is looking to improve his timing sheet, is looking to improve his positioning. Comes across the line, sets a 108.7, unfortunately will stay in P6. Meanwhile, Rala now, who is currently in P8, followed by JP9 actually, who's going to come across the line first, sets a 108.9, stays in promotes himself into P8 ahead of his teammate. With Rala now coming across the line, what sort of times will he be able to set? Manages to set a 108.7, and he does end up beating his teammate only by a slight margin. Igor unfortunately invalidates his run, and it doesn't look like anybody else is going to be improving. So big congratulations to Nekadza and the Haas for securing pole position here in Brazil. Well, I was expecting a bit of a countdown. I did not expect the race to begin right away. There's 5 red lights, and it's lights out, and away we go here at Brazil. I did not expect the race to start that quickly, as I was hoping to have a little bit of a chat before the race begins. Heading down into turn 1 now. Nekadza managing to keep his car ahead and stays in first place at the moment. Alu, meanwhile, not looking to waste any time, looks to have gotten an amazing run out of this corner. Is looking to get past Nekadza as soon as possible. Goes right into his slipstream. We can see Nekadza basically forcing him right into the inside line, and darts extremely right to make sure he keeps that position. Now, Nekadza staying in P1 at the moment. Trems, on the other hand, getting extremely close to the rest of the drivers, as there seems to be some sort of incident there regarding Rula and the Wicked Prophet, as Rala unfortunately has stopped there out on track, and we have a virtual safety car out on track. So Alu gets away lucky there, as he was in a battle with Trems at the moment, but Trems, of course, having to back off under the virtual safety car. Wow, action right from the get-go. So big congratulations to Nekadza, I think. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is his first pole position. So if it is, then let's see if he can hopefully translate that into a win for himself. Of course, Bambino, we can't forget about a championship leader who did start off at the end of the grid, has already brought himself up into P7. And the first lap hasn't even ended yet, so a considerable amount of positions gained over there. And as I believe the virtual safety car will be most likely coming to an end very, very soon, we can see Alu closely following Nekadza, looking to absolutely be on his tail as soon as the green flags start waving. So we're still under virtual safety car conditions. Drivers have to maintain a certain speed and are not allowed to overtake each other, of course. Oh, as Nikudza slows down extremely there, and now all of a sudden it's a three-way fight for the lead of the race. It seems like neither of them were expecting that, and then now all of a sudden, all drivers involved in the lead of this race have been taken out. It is the first lap of this race. Trends, Nikudza, and Alu, all currently who were in P1, P2, and P3, have all been taken out of this race, and we have a safety car. Oh my! I have never seen an incident as massive as this. For those who unfortunately, I'm sorry if the camera angles weren't showing everything as quickly as ideally as we would want them to. So Nikudza, who was leading this race, of course, tried to maintain a certain level of speed within the safety car, within the virtual safety car, and and of course had to brake at the beginning of the straight, as so that he'd meet the timing sheet, so he wouldn't get a penalty. Unfortunately for him, Alu had to hit the brakes right behind him, and that led Trems up right up the inside of the inside of both of them. And we had 3 wide heading into the next corner, and then next thing you know is all 3 drivers being taken out. Is incredible. All 3 drivers who were fighting for the lead of this race have been taken out. And now we're under safety car conditions. So now, ladies and gentlemen, under these safety car conditions, Jaguar currently leads this race and is currently in P1. We have Blurry Julio in the Mercedes currently in P2, and we have Zabs in the Aston Martin currently in P3. Absolutely incredible scenes here at Brazil. What a sight to behold. As the Wicked Prophet has also retired from the session. And we're already down to only 9 drivers. It's been 2 laps. Or 3. It's been 3 laps and we've lost 4 cars. Prezemu also heading into the pits. I hope he did. Oh no, he's exiting the pits now, thankfully. Hasn't retired from the session. Wow. I don't know what to say. But regardless, we are now under safety car conditions, so it will be up to Jaguar to decide when he wants to go at his own convenience. His attempts will be to obviously catch the rest of the grid off. And, oh, don't laugh there, sad. Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize, but that was incredible. But yes, it will be up to Jaguar to go once the safety car comes back into the pits. And race control does give us the go-ahead that they're allowed to go racing again. Lap 4 of 36. We have 32 more laps left to go in this session. A long race ahead of us. What does this mean for Prezemu? He is quite far back at the moment. We'll be looking to catch up to the grid as soon as possible. And with the field all bunched up together, I would not be surprised to know if the safety car is going to be coming at the end of this lap. Who got pole? Nikudza did. Nikudza, Trems, and Alu all were fighting for the lead of the race. All of them got taken out. And now Prezemu is actually caught up to the rest of the grid. So we'll bring our attention back to Jaguar. And as we're coming towards the end of Sector 2, race control should most likely be giving us the update that the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. And then it'll be up to Jaguar to slow down and pace himself. And yes, there it is. Race control has given us the update. So now Jaguar is going to slow his car down tremendously as he waits for the safety car to go back into the pits. And as he tries to catch Blurry off guard and decides to go at a time he deems best for himself, of course. Right on board with Blurry to actually get a better idea of when Jaguar actually does decide to go. Rala unfortunately picking up a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with another driver. And now Jaguar has decided to go. It does look like it's caught Blurry slightly off guard. Zab completely on the rear end of that Mercedes. Will he be sending it down into turn one? Unfortunately, not on this occasion. And Blurry a bit too far back to make a move on Jaguar on the other hand. Goes extremely deep into turn one. And this allows Zab to get an excellent run out of these few corners as we already have a yellow flag near the back of the grid. JP's unfortunately dropped down all the way into P9. Meanwhile, Zab is absolutely sending it to this Mercedes. Unfortunately, can't keep up and cannot be close enough to make the move stick, as Blurry does go slightly off track there. He's going to have to want to be a bit more careful. And Zab basically pushing this Mercedes along at this point. Of course, we can't forget about Bambino. Both the Mercedes sandwiching this Aston Martin, providing a lot of pressure to it. Of course, Zab has the difficult task of not only overtaking one, but preventing an overtake from behind him at the moment. And Bambino is not looking to waste any time. Of course, our championship leader, we know he's quick, so he's not going to be looking to be held up behind Zab for too long. And Jaguar is already beginning to pull away on his 4-lap old hards. And now heading down towards turn one, it's not really much of a fight, is it? When Bambino's when Bambino's the one chasing you, pulls towards the outside line, and Bambino has managed to make the overtake stick. Also sets the fastest lap time of the race with a 1:11.4 and promotes himself up into P3, as it seems to be a driver has gone extremely off the track there. And it was Zabs who seems to have had some sort of moment heading down into turn one, and unfortunately loses out in another position to Saeed. And now Igor all of a sudden seems to be very interested in making up this position as well. Bambino obviously being let through by his teammate, not much of a surprise there. And Igor unfortunately too far back to make the move on Zab at the moment. We see the silver arrows or the black arrows at this point chasing down the Red Bull. And Bambino's already beginning to close that gap significantly to Jaguar. We can just look at the timing sheets and seeing that gap come down. As I say that, it's going back up. Oh, no, there we go. Meanwhile, Igor is not looking to waste any time. The AlphaTauri looking to get past the Aston Martin as soon as he possibly can. Heading now down towards turn one. DRS will be enabled this lap, so he is working purely off a slipstream at the moment. It may be wise just to stay back for now and wait until a better opportunity presents itself. As now we can watch Igor with DRS wide open chasing the Aston Martin down. It seems like Zab's using a considerable amount of his battery to prevent this overtake from happening, and manages to stay in P5 at the current moment. And just as that gap was coming down, Bambino's gap to Jaguar all of a sudden shooting right up to 1.4 seconds there. The good news about having only 9 drivers on the grid is that the action's a lot more easier to follow. So, you know, even though I've said this, I wouldn't be surprised if I now miss a bunch of overtakes, but hopefully not. As Rala has actually caught up to Igor quite significantly there. And Igor has actually dropped off from Zab quite heavily. Riding on board with Rala now as he's slowly trying to close the gap between himself and Igor. And heading down into turn one, it seems to be a 3-way fight for 5th place. As Bambino has actually gotten within the DRS gap. Well, of course, the problem with DRS trains is always that nobody will be able to overtake each other. Bambino, on the other hand, has actually dropped his teammate a slight bit, pulled him along for a considerable amount of time there, and actually created a decent gap between him, Blurry and Saeed. But now Bambino's on to chasing Jaguar, and the gap is already down to 2.5 tenths. It only took a few moments for Bambino to catch up to the race leader, and I don't think there's much Jaguar can really do about a situation like this, having that Mercedes in his rearview mirror. Heading now down, of course, to the first DRS zone. Bambino only 6.5 tenths, 7 tenths now behind Jaguar at the moment. We'll ride on board with him as his DRS now gets activated. And that gap already coming down. It looks like Jaguar was using a bit of his battery there to actually extend the gap between himself and Bambino. So going to be a slow, continual development, but we'll keep our eye on that action. Meanwhile, Rollo on the other hand, 5/10 behind Igor. A much closer battle at the moment. Because I really wouldn't want to miss a thing between Bambino and Jaguar at the moment as well. So it is currently lap 9 of 36, a considerable amount of laps left to go in this session. And Bambino's already very close behind the Red Bull Jaguar. Jaguar seems to be using his battery on the exit of this corner quite heavily. As we have a yellow flag in sector 2, it did seem to be per Zemu. And now 3.5 tenths separating himself and Bambino. And Bambino pulls out of the slipstream of Jaguar. Doesn't look like he's looking to overtake him at the end of this straight. As now we're right on board with Bambino, and he's extremely close to Jaguar on this occasion. Pulls out to the outside so he doesn't get the slipstream, and doesn't look to be making the overtake right now. Just seems to be pushing Jaguar along. Doesn't seem to be interested in any move. Meanwhile, interestingly enough, a very big development is that Saeed Al-Falasi has actually managed to bring the gap significantly down between himself and Blurry. The gap now being only 3/10. 3/10 up ahead, 3/10 at the back. It's hard to tell what battle should I be watching at the moment. I just want to make sure that Bambino doesn't go for a move unexpectedly, as I would like to see the move for the lead of the race, but... Ooh. It looked like his car basically drifted through that corner there. And now Saeed, not looking to waste any time, on the other hand, is not like Bambino in the sense where he's pulling out of the slipstream. Saeed Al-Falasi will most likely stick as closely behind this Mercedes as he possibly can. Heading now down towards turn 1. He has been gaining. There is DRS. It's wide open. Now heading down towards turn 1. Is there much Blurry can do to defend from this position? It doesn't seem to be the case, as Saeed has managed to make the move and promotes himself up into P3. But the battle is far from over right now. Blurry is looking to get an excellent run out of this corner. Assuming that he can, he could maybe make another run right at Saeed. DRS wide open, chasing that Alpine down and heading down into the next corner. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be a bit too far back on this occasion to make the move stick. And now Saeed comfortably takes P3. I say comfortably, but the battle is far from over. We saw Blurry looking towards the inside line there, thought about sending it, thinks better of it. There was a yellow flag in Sector 1 a bit earlier. That seemed to be the Ferrari of JP. At the moment, it just seems like both the Mercedes drivers are just sticking closely behind. I was just about to say Blurry was sticking closely behind Saeed. Unfortunately, Blurry spins his car out and goes off the track, loses out a significant amount of positions, and rejoins the track and the race, being in P7 at the moment. Just a small mistake costed him so significantly. Meanwhile, Bambino still maintaining that extremely small gap to Jaguar, but not making really much of it. A beautiful aerial shot here. Would be nice to see an overtake like this, but it does not seem to be the case. Looks like Bambino is going to continue staying behind Jaguar for a bit longer. Meanwhile, Rolla, on the other hand, right behind Igor. The Ferrari seems to have caught up to the AlphaTauri. Also, suddenly, Rolla almost going completely off track there to make this overtake stick. But luckily for him, he does manage to make the move before the corner begins, and he promotes himself up into P5. Of course, Igor now has to deal with that Mercedes, that very angry Mercedes right behind him, as he's going to want to catch up as soon as possible. But Igor is actually looking to drop Blurry at the moment, who's unfortunately not experiencing the smoothest of drives at the moment. As we approach another DRS zone, will Bambino actually go for the overtake this time? Let's take a look. He is actually gaining on Jaguar a significant amount, but it doesn't look like he's really doing anything. Actually saving a considerable amount of his battery on this occasion. It seems like Blurry actually... Oh no, it seems like Igor actually got past Rolla, or was it... I'm not too sure. It doesn't really matter. So then, ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, the closest battle out on track at the moment. We have 23 more laps to go. That's crazy to imagine. We have 23 more laps to go. And we've already had a ton of action so far. Bambino basically bump drafting with the Red Bull. He's going to have to be extremely careful there that he doesn't spin him out by accident. As Prezema has unfortunately left the session. He is currently in P8. That would be great if he doesn't rejoin. As the AlphaTauri of Igor has unfortunately spun out on track and drops down into P8. Once again, Bambino still very comfortably within the DRS zone of Jaguar at the moment, but still decides against going for the overtake. You can just tell how much he's lifting through some of these corners. It's like really evident there. Let's look at near the end of the grid. We can see JP's actually extremely close to Igor and is trying to promote himself up into 8th place. And unfortunately, that's going to be the end of JP's run, as he unfortunately has to retire out on track after destroying his front wheel. And we have a full-blown safety car once again here at Brazil in lap 14 of 36. Of course, none of these drivers have actually gone for pit stops at the moment, so it'll be an interesting turn to see who's going to be going in for the pits and who isn't. Jaguar, of course, currently on the hard tires. I feel like he may be able to take these tires to last a little longer. Unfortunately for JP, that's going to be the end of his session. It looked like he was extremely close to Igor there to make a possible move, but unfortunately nothing coming of that. But now we ride on board with Jaguar. Let's see, will he be heading into the pits with his 13-lap old hards? Yes, he will. Bambino is also going to follow suit. Saeed Al-Falasi doesn't look like he's going to have any different plans either. Decides to come into the pits. Zabs following in very closely behind, as well as Rala. So it looks like the entire grid is going to be coming in for their pit stops at the moment. Jaguar Red Bull team doing a fantastic pit stop as always. And of course Bambino getting his pit stop done. Unfortunately being massively held up there, unfortunately. And that gap between himself and Jaguar does come up. Luckily for him, no driver seems to get past him. However, we can see how much closer Saeed is to Bambino after that slow stop from Mercedes. So if it was just a bit longer there, if I believe it was Zab who was coming through at the end, if the Mercedes team waited for the Aston Martin to cross through, then Said would have most definitely gotten ahead of Bambino coming out of the pits. But as all these drivers have now come back out onto the pits and after making their fresh stops, seems like Prezema is now out onto the pits as well. Of course, it is his AI driving at the moment. Can I actually control this? Oh, I can't. So, riding on board with Jaguar at the moment, lap 15 of 36. Obviously, safety car not coming in at the end of this lap, but despite the whole grid being pretty bunched up together. Prezema has actually joined back in the session. Welcome back, Prezema. Your AI decided to make a pit stop for you to switch you on to 2-lap old hards, which I'm not too sure if you started off on the mediums or not, but if you did, best be riding these out till the end of the session, I suppose. Well, as the action continues here at Brazil. Of course, we started off with 13 drivers. We're now down to 8. Losing what is essentially a third of the field. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I pressed the wrong button there now, but coming through the end of Sector 2, Race Control has given us the update that the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap, and once again it will be up to Jaguar to catch Bambino off guard and extend his advantage leading this race. We're right on board with Bambino so we can get a better idea as to when Jaguar does decide to go, keeping in mind Saeed is also going to be keeping an extremely close eye on the race leader, and so that he does not lose him on this restart. And now Jaguar has decided to go right as Bambino is actually going left and right. And how has Saeed responded to this? Saeed actually has responded to this very decently. And now heading down towards turn 1, he's about to send it on Bambino. Bambino breaks extremely late heading into that corner. And Saeed just cannot compete with the championship leader at the moment. Unfortunately, he has to stick behind in P3. Credit to Jaguar, though, who made a fantastic run out of the restart after the safety car restart and has already brought his advantage up to roughly 1.1 seconds. That was a great restart from him as we have some action near the back of the grid. It seems Przem was unfortunately spun out and Igor has managed to promote himself up into P7 at the moment. Saeed, meanwhile, sticking extremely closely to Bambino, but has to remember that he has an Aston Martin and a Mercedes right behind him as well. With the whole grid so close together and rough and practically on equal footing, it really does come down to pace at the end of the day. What's interesting is that Jaguar is on the medium tire compound, so of course nearing the end of his race his tires are definitely going to be extremely worn out. We actually take a look at the action going on a bit back here. Zab and Blurry coming into a battle amongst themselves. It looks like Blurry's actually managed to make the move on Zab and has promoted himself up into P4, closing the gap between himself and his teammate at the moment. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like Zab's actually going to be able to get back to Blurry at the moment, and so he's going to have to stay in P5. Saeed, on the other hand, roughly 9/10ths behind Bambino at the moment. And Blurry already almost a second off of Saeed at the moment. And the gap is now beginning to form near the front of the grid. Zab is really not looking to let this move or potential overtake go. The gap between himself and Blurry at the moment being 3.5 and it's only coming down as he's heading down towards turn 1 at the moment. No DRS even at the moment, and now already they're side by side heading down towards turn 1. It seems like Zab's actually quite ahead. Blurry, on the other hand, is most likely going to be sending it into this corner, and they both head down into turn 1. Zab breaks extremely late there, and unfortunately Blurry cannot make the overtake stick. We'll have to stay back in P5 at the moment, and because of this movement from because of this overtaking miss that Blurry experienced, he's actually going to send it down the inside of Zab once again, heading into the next corner, and he does actually get the move done. He gets the move done excellently. Blurry promotes himself up into P4. Zab and now Blurry coming into a battle once again. Zab not looking to let this overtake go, and with Rolla so close behind them, he's looking to capitalize any second he gets the chance. And Zab picks up a 3-second time penalty for going off track. He was side by side with Blurry there, but unfortunately Zab is unable to make that move stick. Rolla, on the other hand, unfortunately still looking for some sort of opening as so he can get past both these drivers. I'm sorry to keep up with the action there as there was just so much happening all at once. Zab now 5/10ths behind Blurry, and Rolla not too far behind them as well. It's a three-way fight for 4th place at the moment. This is helping out Saeed a ton as he's actually managing to extend his advantage onto 4th place at the moment. Zab too far back to make a move. But now, granted, he can get a nice run out of this corner. We may be looking at another possible overtake. Blurry moving all the way left so that he can, so that he does not get the, so that Zab does not pick up the slipstream, and Zab not chasing his opponent down on that occasion either. Maybe if he did, he would have been able to make a move, as they're both side by side now, heading through sector 2. We can see that the Aston Martin seems to be on the outside, and now heading down that left-hander. The Mercedes of Blurry actually manages to keep the position very nicely. Rala currently in P6. Still waiting for his opening. Hasn't found it just as yet. As Trems, who was actually in the session for quite a considerable amount of time, has just decided to leave. Lap 20 of 36. We are now over the halfway point of this race. And Zab is not looking to waste any more time if he doesn't have to. DRS wide open, chasing that Mercedes, heading down towards turn 1 once again. Lap 21 of 36. It looks like he's going to be given the outside line, and now around the outside, Zab is trying to make the move stick, and under great braking, it looks like he is actually going to be able to make the move, promotes himself up into P4. Rala now following very closely behind the two of these drivers, and now Blurry actually not done with Zab's just as yet. Now with the DRS, makes the move right through in the next DRS zone, and promotes himself right back up into P4. Blurry doing a fantastic job by nearly parking his car near the center of the track. And we've seen Zab trying to make this move earlier. It just seems like he can't get it down. Unfortunately, he has to stay in P5 at the moment. Saeed now 2.4 seconds ahead of P4 at the moment. This battle is costing him significantly. Bambino, of course, within a second to P1 at the moment. We can see this from the perspective of the driver who has the best view in the house at the moment. Rala watching this battle unfold in front of him. And we can see Zab now once again closing the gap to Blurry. Blurry takes the inside line. Zab once again given the outside line. Last time this was the case, he did still manage to make the overtake stick. And now around the outside, once again, Zab manages to make the move stick and promotes himself up into P1. But it's not over yet. Blurry, as similar to the last lap, is now with DRS and is now once again looking to get past this Aston Martin as soon as possible. The Ferrari of Rala getting very involved in this fight as well. If we can see, Blurry manages to make the overtake stick, promotes himself up into P4. Zab managing to retain P5, and Rala unable to make that overtake despite going around the outside. This three-way fight for fourth place just gets spicier and spicier. In lap 22 of 36, only 12 more laps left to go in the session, and already the action seems to be picking up now. As this three-way battle continues, we can see Bambino basically pushing the Red Bull along. That's been going on for quite a considerable amount of time. It's only a matter of time before Bambino actually decides to go for that overtake. And Zab once again has had the same two things happen to him back-to-back times on consecutive laps as well. Zab is going to most likely be looking to change things now. DRS wide open, but it looks like he's quite far back on this occasion. Meanwhile, the Ferrari of Rala absolutely steamrolling past Zab. Look to be making a potential move on the Mercedes. Unfortunately, he can't do it. But meanwhile, Zab gets a fantastic switch back around and promotes himself back up into P6. But he's still... Oh no, he looked like he promoted himself up into P5, but unfortunately, nothing doing yet. Rala now going right after Blurry. Blurry giving him the outside line, and around the outside, Rala is trying to make the move on the Mercedes. They're still side by side with each other, heading towards the next corner at the moment. We can see the Aston Martin of Zab trying to stay as close behind them as possible. Blurry goes extremely deep into this corner and actually makes it fantastically and manages to retain P4. Zab, on the other hand, cannot get past this Ferrari at the moment. The action continues as Zab looked to have gotten a fantastic switchback on the Ferrari. Unfortunately, it looked like that loss of grip costed him there, and he wasn't able to keep that move staying there. And now Rala is going to be chasing the Mercedes, with Zab following very closely behind him. However, the gap between Rala and Zab is actually quite significant, as Bambino is actually looking to make the move now and has actually decided to make the move and promotes himself up into P1. Zab, on the other hand, unfortunately too far back on this occasion to make the move on the Ferrari. But we'll watch this riding on board with Rala as we can see Zab closely behind them. And Rala trying to close the gap between himself and Blurry. Unfortunately, just can't seem to have gone close enough to maybe make a move on to heading into that corner. But there's still plenty of laps left to go in this race. So it's probably a wise move to play smarter at the moment. There's no need to take any unnecessary risks. As I say that, we saw that beautiful three-way fight between all three drivers. Credit to them for not being involved in any incidents with each other either. And Zab in the Aston Martin seems to be on an absolute mission, looking to get past this Ferrari as soon as possible. Riding on board with Zab now, we can see Rala slowly closing the gap between himself and Blurry. Unfortunately, heading down into turn 1, he's once again too far back, but assuming that he can get a good exit out of this corner, he may be looking at a potential overtake. Nothing doing yet, of course. As the DRS train for P4 continues. As it looked like from certain angles, I thought the track got a bit wet there, but what's interesting about as this race continues is the fact that we now have a few clouds above us, which makes things extremely interesting. Not too sure if there will be rain nearing the end of this session, but if there is, it would throw a spanner into the works. As there is a yellow flag in Sector 2, it seems to be Przemu once again, who's unfortunately spun off there. And Rala almost falling out of a second to Blurry, which would have extremely handicapped him and defending from Zab behind. But bringing that gap comfortably back down between them once again. That didn't seem to be the best few sets of corners for the Ferrari there. Only 10 more laps left to go in the session. Not much longer now. It's good that we have some sort of action going on at the moment as the Aston Martin of Zab gets extremely close to the Ferrari there. Sends it down the inside. There's a bit of contact between both the drivers, but Zab with the inside line looks to have made the overtake stick for only a little bit as the Ferrari once again with the inside line heading into that next corner. And they're still side by side heading towards the pit straight. And it looks like Zab has actually come out ahead on this occasion. Rala now heading down the pit straight will be most likely looking to use the DRS to his advantage to make the overtake right before the corner begins. But now with DRS wide open, doesn't look like Zab's really able to do too much to prevent this overtake from happening. But the battle is far from over with the next DRS straight right around the corner. Zab is going to have to make sure he gets a very nice exit out of this corner, so that he can maybe potentially fight Rala and maybe make the overtake. But unfortunately, it looks like Zab was just not able to get the exit he wanted from there. And unfortunately, it looks like Rala is going to be pulling away. Rala stays in P5 and Zab stays in P6. A move seemingly coming out of nowhere almost. Zab got extremely close to Rala there and sent him move down the inside, and actually nearly did catch Rala napping there, but unfortunately Zab is just going to have to bide his time once again and wait for another opportunity to present itself. Unfortunately for Rala though, that battle did cost him extremely heavily, as now the gap between himself and Blurry is now 1.8 seconds. DRS wide open and Zab still unable to make the move on Rala at the moment. Too far back on this occasion. And now Zab looking to avoid making the same mistakes he made through these last few corners the last time he came through this part of the track. DRS now wide open, heading down towards the next corner, and once again Rolla is just fingertips away from Zab, unable to make the move to promote himself up into P5, but Zab's just going to be trying to bide his time at the moment. Everyone else seems to be just driving a race of their own at the moment. No other competitive battles going on the track, unfortunately. We had a very interesting first half of this race, and now it's all just kind of mellowed out now. Luckily for us, Rolla and Zab are still providing us plenty of action to watch and talk about. Zab just trying to rely on a good exit as much as he possibly can, and he looks like he's gotten an extremely good exit on this occasion, now sending it down the inside of the Ferrari, and it doesn't look like Rolla's going to be able to do too much. Zab promotes himself up into P5, and Rolla stays in P6. It was a move that had been coming for quite a considerable amount of time, and Zab finally manages to get it done and gets past that Ferrari, and now it's up to him to catch up and close that gap to the Mercedes driver ahead. Of course, we saw that when Zab was fighting with Blurry, they were extremely close to each other. So maybe Zab can pull Rolla along with him and close that gap to the Mercedes. 7 laps left to go in the session, of course. Or 6 now. Rolla already falling out of a second to Zab. Unfortunately, with only 6 laps that's left to go in the session, and the gaps being as wide as they are between most of these drivers, there isn't really much to talk about in this kind of a situation. We can see Zab having a 2-second gap between himself and Blurry at the moment. Not to forget that Zab does have, let's check if he has the 3-second time penalty. So, assuming that the race ends where it is now, Rolla would end up finishing ahead of Zab on this occasion. And while we have the moment, why not take a look at a few more interesting details? So, of course, Bambino has made up the most amount of positions with 12. Igor, despite being in P7 or second last at the moment, has actually made up 4 positions. And despite the Wicked Prophet retiring in 10th place, he made up 2 positions as well. You see, all drivers other than Prezemu have made 1 stop each. The tires, all the drivers are running at the moment. Oh, but what's interesting about this is I just realized Rolla's on the mediums. So as we're nearing the end of this race, Rolla's tires are going to be absolutely finished. So if Zab has managed to save enough of his tire life as he ideally should have, he should be able to drop Rolla pretty easily within these last few laps. I guess time will tell. Not much else to keep an eye on at the moment. It looked like for a few moments after that safety car restart that Saeed might be actually looking to fight with Jaguar at the moment. He was having a battle with Bambino. Unfortunately, Saeed could not win that fight. And all drivers are just kind of in no man's land at the moment. Everyone has a considerable gap between each other, and doesn't look like anything's really progressing or providing any exciting action at the moment. Only 4 more laps left to go in the session, and of course, a driver who really could not be stopped today. Of course, I might as well start giving my end credit notes as I normally do on the race winner, but 4 laps left to go. Bambino, of course, it's a story that's repeated itself throughout the entire season. And then that's Bambino coming across the line to win the race. And assuming nothing goes wrong, which hopefully nothing will, that result seems to be the same here today as well. We got some interesting racing from most of these drivers. Of course, we had that action-packed lap 1. Or lap 2, I believe, actually. There really is, at this point, not much more to talk about. If I could, at a point like this, I would just try to take control of a car if it was out on track. That would have been fun. At least I would have been doing something, I suppose. Huh? Whoa, what happened here? And right as migrating... Oh, no, don't tell me. Oh, my lord, have I disconnected? Or has Saeed just left the session? Saeed Al-Falasi has left the session. Lap 33 of 36, just as things were starting to kind of dull themselves out, Saeed has unfortunately been disconnected from the session. And what does this mean for Zab, who seems to be on a faster lap time than he usually is? He's going to be looking to close the gap to Saeed as soon as he possibly can. With only 2 laps left to go in the race, I don't know if he has enough time, but 11.7 seconds against an AI. We'll have to see if Zab can maybe try to close that gap as soon as possible. Not to mention the incident involving Blurry, who unfortunately was currently in P4. But unfortunately, we did see him go significantly off the track, so close nearing the end of this race, and he has to rejoin currently now in P7. And it doesn't look like Zab's really closing the gap to Saeed either. Seems like Saeed's AI is extremely rapid at the moment. Hopefully Saeed's able to join back the session very quickly. I was talking about how the race kind of mellowed itself out, and we had 2 pretty big updates come back to back from each other. I wasn't expecting either of them to end up that way, but you see Igor's actually closed the gap to Rolla quite nicely. Igor all of a sudden within a second of Rolla. And it seems to be those medium tires for him which are costing him so heavily. But what's interesting is the gap between Rolla and Zab seems to be 2 seconds at the moment. This is the absolute last thing Rolla needed at this current time, because a fight with Igor would just drop him out of that 3-second window to Zab. And already Igor doesn't seem to be wasting any time as he's ghosting through the Ferrari. As I hope I'm not the one disconnected, as I'm not too sure how that happened, but it seems like Rolla's going extremely slowly as there's a yellow flag. Is that Blurry? Seems it might have been Blurry there, who's experiencing some sort of issues himself. Igor is absolutely flying right now, catching up to Zabs in no time whatsoever as well. As we enter the final lap of this race, Igor just outside of a second to Zab at the moment. Has a lot more battery than the Aston Martin ahead of him. Does he get DRS? No, he does not, unfortunately. That is just what Igor might have needed. Of course, with only that last sector in at Brazil, he might have just enough room with that DRS to maybe make the move stick, assuming that he can close the gap enough to Zabs at the moment. It really does come down to this final few corners, but oh, never mind. It just okay. Okay, I guess. Huh. Bambino hasn't even crossed the line, but the race is over. Fantastic. Jaguar hasn't even crossed the line, but the race is over as well. Saeed most likely is gonna come across the line in P3, I guess. Blurry. They're all ghosting through each other. Have I disconnected from the session? I'm not too sure what happened there, but alas, congratulations to Bambino for winning the race, Jaguar for coming in P2, and Saeed for finishing up in P3. Blurry actually ends up finishing up in P4, Zab in P5, Igor in P6, Rala in P7, Prezemu in P8. Any interviews tonight? Maybe not tonight, but I will be looking to do interviews for the next race. Of course, the final race of the season coming in next week, so I'll be most definitely be doing interviews then. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in for Tier 2 with me. I'm not too sure what happened near the final lap there, but regardless, I hope you all have enjoyed at least most of this race as much as I have. You can all join me next week as we head down to Saudi Arabia for of course, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and where I think we'll be going to Jeddah there. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll hopefully see you all next week.